In today's video, we're going to learn the absolute basics of Blender. We'll discuss the Blender layout, how to move in 3D space, and how to interact with objects. We'll also cover some hotkeys, viewport tools, and I'll go over some tips that can help you tackle errors when first doing this tutorial. At the time of recording this video, we're going to be using version 4.4.3 of Blender, which was released in late April. However, you can use older versions of Blender, but I can't guarantee they will have all the features this version has as we go deeper in the series. When you first boot up Blender, you might have no idea what we're looking at, but that's fine. When you load in, you might see this scene. It consists of a default cube, a default light, and default camera. This is called your 3D viewport. This is where you're going to be animating, modeling, sculpting, UV editing, all that stuff. To the bottom of our 3D viewport, we have our timeline. This is mainly used for animation and physics, maybe simulations. To the top right, we have our scene collection. This scene collection outlines all our objects, lights, and cameras in our 3D viewport. Over here on the bottom is our properties editor. Here we can edit certain aspects of our file, objects, world, and how we want our scene or render to be outputted. We'll mess with these things later in later videos. In the bottom left corner, I have this little mouse. Here it'll show you all the keys I press and what I press on my touchpad or on my mouse. So you can see what I press and press it on your own keyboard at home. Alright, so to select an object, all you have to do is click the cube or anything you want. For this example, let's click on the cube. You'll know it's selected when it has this orange outline around it. To move it, we use the hotkey G. In Blender, we don't click or drag or use the WASD keys for movement. Instead, we use hotkeys, and the hotkey for move is G. Now that we have our move tool activated, you'll see a white outline around our cube. That means we're moving it around or doing a type of transformation to it. Alright, so in Blender, we don't really use this free flow kind of manner. We usually assign our movement to an axis. To do that, while you're in move mode, press the axis X, Y, or Z. And you can just experiment and just move it around. If you're satisfied with the movement, you can just press click and it'll stay there. You can also move 2 axes at a time. To do that, all we have to do is click on it, press G, and then shift and the axis you want to exclude. So for instance, if I want to move it on the Z and X axis, naturally I would have to exclude the Y axis. So I press Y. So now I'm moving on the Z and X axis, not on the Y. Try experimenting. You won't get the hang of it until you actually try experimenting with it or trying to do something with it. To rotate an object, we press the hotkey R. We can also move it along an axis. We can also move it around 2 axes at a time. So press R, shift, and the axis you want to exclude. Let's move it on the Z and Y axis, so we have to exclude X. So all we have to do is press X. And there we go. To make the cube bigger or smaller, which is called scaling, you have to press the hotkey S. And again, we can assign our transformation to an axis, which is pretty cool. And also, we can just scale it on 2 axes at a time. So I excluded the Z axis. Alright, good. If you didn't like the hotkeys, there is another option. You can go over here and click on these on-screen buttons to help you assist. Now with these on-screen buttons, you'll get some arrows to help you with any movement. You can do this with rotate as well, and scale. The thing is, I wouldn't really recommend you doing this unless you absolutely have to, mainly because of how dependent Blender is with hotkeys. Almost for everything in Blender, you'll have to use a hotkey or access a menu through it. So it's better to get acquainted with it right now than do the shortcut. However, of course, if you have accessibility issues, you are more than welcome to use this, or if you have any other specific needs. So we learned how to move, rotate, and scale objects in Blender, but how do we move around? We rotate our view using our middle button. So click on your mouse and just hold it down, and you'll see we can actually rotate. Now, if you're on a laptop, I would recommend going to Edit, going down to Preferences, clicking Input, and then pressing Emulate 3-button mouse. And while you're here, also press Emulate Numpad. What this will do is that it'll allow you to use the hotkey Alt and then left click hold to rotate as well. If you don't feel comfortable with either of those options, you can also use this little sphere right here and just drag, holding it and dragging across to rotate. Alright, to zoom in, we can use our scroll wheel if you have a mouse, or you can use pinch in or pinch out gestures on your touchpad. If you don't have a modern touchpad, you can also use this little magnifying glass here, which works just as well. To pan around in Blender, we can use this little hand right here, or we can use the hotkey Shift and then middle button mouse, and then we can do this. If you're on a laptop, click Shift, Alt, and then left click, and it'll do the same. Alright, one point I did neglect to point out is that when you're dragging and clicking, you might see that you can actually press these little endpoints, right? Little letters. And what you're doing is basically using a preset viewpoint. So for example, I'm viewing this cube at a 90-degree angle perfectly there. So this is just good if you want specific angles. You can also access these little letters, if you want to say that, using your numpad or your number keys on your laptop or PC. So press 1, 2, 3, 4 and just experiment across the board. Now, if you pressed 0, you would have noticed that it actually took us to our camera. So pressing 0 just allows us to view our object or scene from the camera's perspective. Alright, if you press number pad 5, you will see that we switch into orthographic view, which is another type of view that isn't really used a lot in Blender tutorials. Unless you're doing some really intricate stuff. We'll go in depth more in the next episode about this. But if you want to switch back to your normal view, just press 5, number pad 5, or this little grid right here. Switch it back to perspective mode. Alright, that was it for part 1 of this intro series. In the next part, we'll go over our scene collection, our properties editor, and we'll go into something called edit mode. Alright, this is where we actually get into modeling, right? And we'll go over all these little options here at the top and what they mean. We'll also go over here, explain what this means, and these little menus. We'll leave all of this, however, in the next 3 to 4 parts of this series.